Now we reach perhaps Hume's most provocative claim, the one that directly challenges the entire rationalist tradition in ethics. Reason is, and ought only to be, the slave of the passions, and can never pretend to any other office than to serve and obey them. This shocking statement appears in the treatise, and it overturns centuries of moral philosophy. From Plato through the Stoics to Descartes and Kant, the dominant view held that reason should govern the passions, that rationality should master emotion, that morality consists in following reason against inclination. Hume reverses this completely. Reason, he argues, cannot motivate action. Only passions, desires, emotions, sentiments can motivate. Reason merely calculates means to ends that passion sets.
Let's unpack this carefully because it's easy to misunderstand. Hume isn't saying we should be irrational or that we should let emotions run wild without any self-control. He's making a philosophical claim about the nature of motivation. Consider what happens when you act. You decide to get coffee. Why? Because you desire coffee. You decide to help a friend. Why? Because you care about your friend's welfare. You decide to avoid danger. Why? Because you fear harm. In every case, there's a desire, emotion, or sentiment driving the action. The passion provides the goal, the end, the purpose. Reason can tell you how to achieve that goal, where to find coffee, how to help effectively, which dangers to avoid. But reason can't create the goal itself. It can't make you want coffee if you have no desire for it. It can't make you care about your friend's welfare if you're completely indifferent to it.
This is what Hume means by reason being the slave of the passions. Reason serves passion by figuring out how to satisfy desires, but it can't generate desires itself. It's an instrument, a tool for achieving ends set by our passions. Hume goes further with a deliberately provocative example. "'Tis not contrary to reason to prefer the destruction of the whole world to the scratching of my finger." This sounds absurd, even monstrous. But Hume's point is that reason alone can't tell you what to value. If someone genuinely cared more about their finger's comfort than about the entire world's existence, reason couldn't prove them wrong. Reason can point out contradictions in belief, calculate consequences, identify means to ends, but it can't create values from nothing.
This challenges the entire rationalist approach to ethics. Kant would later argue that pure practical reason can determine what we ought to do, independent of any desires or inclinations. The categorical imperative, Kant claims, binds us through reason alone. We recognize our duty through rational reflection, and this recognition motivates us to act regardless of what we want or feel. Hume says this is impossible. Reason alone, without any passion or sentiment, is perfectly inert. It can discover truth and falsehood, but it can't motivate action. You might rationally recognize that stealing is wrong, but this recognition alone won't prevent you from stealing unless you have some sentiment, concern for others, fear of punishment, desire for self-respect, commitment to integrity that makes you care about not doing wrong.
Hume distinguishes between two ways reason operates in relation to action. First, reason can inform us about matters of fact relevant to our goals. If you want to be healthy, and you believe that smoking is unhealthy, reason tells you not to smoke. Second, reason can trace causal relations between means and ends. If you want to get to the airport, and you know the route, reason tells you which turns to take. But in both cases, reason is operating in service of pre-existing desires. The desire for health makes the fact about smoking's harm relevant. The desire to reach the airport makes the route information useful. Without desire, factual knowledge and causal reasoning have no motivational force.
This has radical implications for moral philosophy.
If reason can't motivate, then moral requirements can't be purely rational. They must engage our sentiments somehow. This leads Hume to his positive account of morality, which we'll examine in the next section. Morality is based on sentiments of approval and disapproval that arise naturally in response to actions and characters. We feel approval when we observe actions that promote human well-being, and we feel disapproval when we observe actions that cause harm. These sentiments, not rational principles, are the foundation of moral judgment. Modern psychology and neuroscience have largely vindicated Hume's position. Research on moral psychology shows that moral judgments are typically driven by quick, automatic emotional responses rather than careful, rational deliberation. When people are presented with moral scenarios, their emotional reactions occur within milliseconds, before conscious reasoning can take place. The rational arguments people offer for their moral views often come after the emotional judgment, serving to justify rather than generate the judgment. This is exactly what Hume predicted. Passion leads, reason follows, and rationalizes.
Neuroscience has identified distinct brain systems for emotional processing and rational deliberation. Emotional systems, particularly involving the amygdala, ventromedial prefrontal cortex, and related structures, respond rapidly to moral stimuli and generate feelings of approval, disapproval, empathy, disgust. These emotional responses strongly influence moral judgment. Damage to emotional processing areas impairs moral judgment, even when rational capacities remain intact. People with such damage often show reduced concern for others' welfare, suggesting that emotional engagement is necessary for normal moral motivation. Moreover, research on motivation confirms that desires drive action. The dopamine system, crucial for motivation, responds to anticipated rewards and desired outcomes. We're motivated to pursue what we desire and avoid what we fear or dislike. Purely abstract, rational considerations, disconnected from any emotional valence or desire-based relevance, don't engage motivational systems.
This doesn't mean reason is unimportant. Rational deliberation can refine our goals, identify better means, resolve conflicts between desires, and help us recognize when emotional responses might mislead us. But reason operates in service of goals ultimately set by our wants, cares, and concerns, by passion, in Hume's terms. This creates a challenge for moral philosophy. If reason alone can't motivate, and if morality requires motivation, then morality must somehow engage our passions. But different people have different passions, different desires, different emotional sensibilities. Does this make morality relative? Hume tries to avoid this conclusion by arguing that human nature is sufficiently uniform that we share certain sentiments, particularly sympathy, the capacity to feel concern for others' well-being. This shared emotional foundation provides enough commonality for moral agreement, at least within broad limits. But Hume's account raises questions about moral objectivity that continue to challenge philosophers today.